don't gas out. Listen, let's talk about the idea or the proper nutrition and or supplementation around your workout. So before your workouts, what nutrition and what supplementation you want. During your workout, same thing. And then after your workouts, same thing, right? So the idea is this, right? Before your workouts, you want to use nutrition and supplementation to fuel your workouts, right? And I use that term fuel your workouts pretty loosely, okay? During your workouts, you want to it's kind of the same thing. So it's a branch off of the fueling your workouts, but it's going to allow you to continue on. So especially in terms of endurance, right? And then the proper nutrition after your workouts, proper nutrition and supplementation after your workouts is mainly to jumpstart and allow the full process of recovery, okay? So let's start with just in general, before your workouts. What do you want to do here, right? So generally speaking, you want to have a full meal 2 to 3 hours before your workout, right? So like if you work out in the evening, that's pretty simple. It's like around, maybe lunchtime or something like that. You want to have a lunch, right? But if you are one of those early risers, then you would want to cut that to 30 minutes to 60 minutes before your workout, and then significantly reduce that meal or whatever it may be, right? So the full meal should consist of at least 20, and we're talking 2 to 3 hours before your workout. That full meal should consist of at least 25 grams of protein. 25 grams of protein. You want complex carbs like rice, oats, quinoa, whatever. You know what complex carbs are. And some healthy fats. Don't overload it. I'll explain a little bit more later. But that you want to do 2 to 3 hours before your workout, right? From a supplementation standpoint, this is where I would typically take like blood flow supplements. So maybe like my beetroot, arginine, ginkgo biloba, some type of supplementation like that, because I take it with food. So around lunchtime, that's when I would take my first little stack of supplements, I guess. Well, no, it's not really my first, but that's where I would take blood flow, blood circulation supplements if I were to do any supplementation at all, right? Then about 30 to 60 minutes before workout, I'll go for, and this is what the smaller meal would be. It would be fast digesting carbs. An apple, like a lot of fruit falls under this category. So like a little bit of fruit, maybe a little bit of yogurt with it, maybe a small smoothie of some sort, something like that. But you don't necessarily want to overload on anything, because then you end up feeling weird during your workouts. And given the type of workout it is, that could lead to some really bad stuff and really uncomfortable stuff. Okay, so you want to basically consume something that is light, so you don't cause an upset stomach or anything like that, right? And you typically want to stay away from a lot of the heavy fats closer to your workout, right? So for lunch, it's okay to have some healthy fats. You don't want to overload that 30 minutes before a workout. Just it doesn't lead to good things. Let's just leave it at that, okay? Now, from a supplementation standpoint, you'll want to consume, maybe you could consume a pre-workout, right? I take a pre-workout, but I actually make my own pre-workout just because there's always different brands. And that's not knocking anything or any other brand or anything like that, but it's just, I'd much rather know exactly what's going in there than trusting a label that often is kind of mixed up. That's just me, to each their own. But the base for what you need in terms of supplementation before a workout would be just one or both or one or two of these things. Number one is creatine. Creatine before, that's base. And then you could throw in some BCAAs as well. I did a whole episode on wait. I did a whole episode on both actually, right? Or a whole segment on both. I did a segment on creatine and I did a segment on BCAAs. I'll throw in the links for this episode or for those episodes in this episode, right? In the show notes and whatnot. But if you're at all confused about what either one of those are, go back to those episodes, right? But that's what I'll put in my pre-workout, right? Caffeine can be good too, right? But there's always a tendency to overdo it. And if you do that for too long, it ends up having some other effects. It's not the best. Let me rephrase that. It's really good, but for me, it is not the best. I don't typically need it anymore. And I found out that the more I took it, the sicker I got. So I was just, let me fall back off of that a little bit. You might be in the same boat. And then, so there's a few suggestions for you there. You might not be. Go ahead, keep taking caffeine in. It's all good, right? But you'll also want to consider the proper fueling for your work. Well, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. So I want to rephrase all of this, right? So for a regular strength workout, you don't necessarily need fuel to jump into a strength workout, like just a good old fashioned strength workout. You don't really need fuel for that, right? So in general, if you have a balanced diet, you're pretty much good to go. As in terms of fueling before your workouts, okay? But then there's also this one thing that you want to consider. That's if you're doing a normal 1 hour workout, right? You don't necessarily need fueling for that. But if you start to do, like, let's just say a resistance training workout for longer than an hour and a half, and it's just like, well, why would you want to do that? Well, there's power lifters that do that. They work multiple hours. This would be good for them. They would probably need fueling before their workouts, right? And a lot of it is because they're lifting a ton of weight and they're taking more rest. But the fact that it's still pretty intense while they're lifting that particular heavy behinds, like stupid heavy weight, they're going to need that proper fueling, right? The same thing with bodybuilders who often work out twice in a day, right? They're going to need that proper fueling. But for the general folk, the general people, average, you don't really necessarily have to worry about fueling your resistance training workouts, your strength workouts. Now, you might want to consider fuel for like your HIIT workouts, or you might want to consider fuel for your cardio, like your endurance cardio workouts. And that's where the simple carbs come into play majorly, right? And that primarily is because during a HIIT workout, you're burning off your glycogen and you need to replenish those stores, right? Once you burn it off in your muscles, your liver starts to transport that stuff and it starts burning it off in your liver. Well, there's only one more thing that you're really going to start to burn off, and that's muscle. We don't want that, right? So you might want to consider proper fueling before your HIIT workouts with those complex carbs and all that fun. Or I'm sorry, I keep saying complex. Those simple carbs, or fast digesting carbs. And the same thing for your endurance runs, right? So any resistance training workout that lasts longer than an hour and a half, you want to consider fueling. Any HIIT workout, you want to consider fueling. And any endurance cardio, you want to consider fueling, okay? So again, and for the general public, you don't necessarily have to worry about it because for the general public, you probably shouldn't be working out. As far as resistance training goes, you probably shouldn't be working out longer than an hour and some change anyway. It's just you get diminishing returns. So it's unless you like, I know a lot of people really, 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 really enjoy it, but you really don't get the same. You don't get like multiplicative benefits for working out for 2 hours as opposed to 1. Actually, the sweet spot is I think it was 45 minutes to an hour anyway. So, take that for what it is. So this takes us to proper nutrition and supplementation for during your workouts, okay? And this one is simple. It's water. Agua. El agua? Water. Water? It's liquid. H2O. That's it. It's just that simple, right? Unless you're doing an extended resistance training session, or unless you're doing HIIT or extended cardio, water works. Actually, water's the best. You want to stay hydrated, okay? Now, you might want to consider, especially for like a HIIT session, you might want to consider an electrolyte filled or a HIIT session, and probably an endurance cardio session as well. Maybe not so much for an extended resistance training session. It really depends on how much you sweat. So the sweater you get for whatever that workout is, the more you might want to consider some electrolyte solution during your workout. Other than that, water is fine. Water is sufficient, okay? And now also consider BCAAs during your workouts as well. There's some things that especially for like endurance athletes, it could aid in your endurance during your workout. It also could reduce the soreness at the end. I talked about that in that episode, in the BCAA episode, right? So I just want you to know, like, you could use BC, you could drink them, but it's not obligatory. Like, you don't have to, right? Again, most cases, for most people, you'll be fine with just water, okay? Now, remember, our post-workout supplement or post-workout nutrition and supplementation is all about recovery. So we want to A, replenish our energy stores, and B, jumpstart the recovery process or the muscle building or muscle protein synthesis process, right? So, your focus will depend on what type of workout you're doing. So for resistance training, obviously your focus is on protein. Get protein after your workout. Now, what I typically do, I go the protein nutritional supplementation route, right? So I go the supplement route. I do protein shakes. I'll drink protein shakes, but I'll actually start to sip my protein shake towards the end of my workout. And usually most of the time it's during and this is for resistance training workouts, right? I'll start to sip my protein shake just maybe I have 2 sets left of the last exercise of my workout. That's when I'll start it, okay? And that's just so it aids in the recovery process. It starts the recovery process. Again, after a resistance training workout, protein is number 1. That's what you want, right? Now, after a HIIT session, it's actually, the focus is a little bit different. The focus actually should be on a combination of simple carbs or fast digesting carbs and complex carbs. So you kind of want to start off with those fast digesting carbs and then shift into more complex carbs. You can mix them up as well. There's no big deal. And then also focus on protein, right? So your main primary focus for recovery after your resistance training program or resistance training workout is protein, and your main focus for recovery after your HIIT session, your main focus there is simple carbs going into complex carbs. Then, as far as a meal goes, it's basically the same before 2 to 3 hours before meal that you would want. So you want at least 25 grams of protein, complex carbs, and healthy fats, right? And so, and that really should cover you. So it should cover you for your fueling, for your workouts if you need it. If you're doing that kind of working out, if you're doing that kind of exercise, and then it will give you the energy and the recovery on the back end, right? So that you can, rebuild muscle, replenish energy stores, and go at it again the next day or next 2 days or something like that, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so that's the quick. Actually, that might be just a quick tip. So there we go. Right, that's how you properly fuel your workouts. What nutrition supplementation do you need during your workouts? Really, it's just water. Remember, and what you can do, what you can eat and ingest, and what you could take for after your workout so that you can recover and recover well. All right, let's keep it going. So if you like this segment, here's another one for you. Click over here. And if you want the entire podcast, go this way. Click on that one right there. And once again, I appreciate you. All right, you take it easy.